Hi there, my name is Nicole, and I just wanted to make this quick video about idiopathic hypersomnia and narcolepsy awareness. So, I also wanted to mention I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving any medical advice to you, but I am here just to tell you my story and my experience. So, here we go. I probably started to have some symptoms of idiopathic hypersomnia when I was a kid. I remember as a younger child really struggling with falling asleep, and I remember laying in bed and I just couldn't sleep. I was anxious, I was awake at night for some reason, and I would lay in bed probably for hours awake, and I just thought that that was what people did, and I didn't really know that that wasn't normal. And I had a big family. I was in a big family with a lot of siblings, so you didn't mess with mom and dad when they were sleeping, and my parents are somewhat normal sleepers. um, yeah, as a little kid, I just probably never had enough sleep. And then fast forward to middle school, I started to struggle a little bit more with staying awake during the day around seventh grade. I think that there are some changes during puberty. So then I remember just not being able to think straight because I was so tired. And eventually in high school, that progressed to every single class that I would go to throughout the day. I would be able to stay awake for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I always tried to stay awake while the teacher was talking. Um, and then I pretty much would always end up falling asleep on my desk and waking up at the end of class, like drooling on my arm. And I didn't want to be sleeping. And I'm sure that my teachers probably thought that I was just a naughty teenager that was probably staying up all night or partying or something, which that was not the case at all. I wanted to participate, and I was so overcome with exhaustion that there was no way nobody could have kept me awake. And it's unfortunate that my school didn't really make that a concern. But a lot of people don't know about sleep disorders, and a lot of times things are written off in teenagers because teenagers typically can be sleepy and do stay up late and need a lot of extra sleep, anyways. So, um, after high school, I started to go to a community college near my house, and I just wasn't doing well. I had already had my son, who is now 7 years old, and he was sick all the time. So he had pretty much continual strep and ear infections. So I'd always be leaving class to go pick him up because he had a fever and we had to go to the doctor. And it always seemed like it took him about a week of having fevers until he would be healthy again. And during that time, I started to have these like dizziness spells that I didn't know what was going on with my health, but I knew that it was something. And so I remember going to the doctor and talking about how I just get like really overcome with dizziness. And at the time, I didn't realize there were signs that if I had been educated, I would know were symptoms of idiopathic hypersomnia and also cataplexy, which is usually only diagnosed with narcolepsy. Um, so, oh, and just for another disclaimer, I was diagnosed with idiopathic hypersomnia recently, but I believe that I do have cataplexy. I have pretty much every symptom of it, but I just didn't show up as a narcoleptic in my sleep study because they look at how your how your REM sleep is working and how fast you're going into REM sleep. And I don't go into REM sleep fast enough to be considered that I actually have narcolepsy, but my doctor explained to me that it can take years for that to happen, and sometimes it's very gradual. But I do have cataplexy symptoms, so I might end up being diagnosed even without that sleep study appearing that I have narcolepsy. So, anyways, um, there are signs of cataplexy that are really obvious. Like some people just fall to the ground when they have extreme emotions, like anger or laughing. And I was thinking back, and every time that I am standing up and I laugh, my like one or both of my knees kind of pop out, and I do feel like I'm going to fall down, and I end up leaning against a wall or something. And I didn't know that back then, that was a sign of anything. I was like, I'm not going to tell my doctor that. Like, that wasn't even on my radar. I just knew that I felt dizzy. So went to the doctor. They did some blood work and kind of wrote me off that, you're just a new mom and you're tired. And that's what doctors tell new moms a lot of the time, because, yeah, you are tired if you're a new mom, but being dizzy and being excruciatingly tired for years is not normal. And so I ended up going to cosmetology school after trying to do the community college route and it not working with my exhaustion and fatigue and taking care of a little one. So cosmetology school was much more lenient, and it didn't take very much brain power for me to be able to do what I needed to do. But even then, I still really never felt like I had the energy to excel or to really apply myself how I should have and how I wanted to, because I was just purely exhausted all the time. And that was really difficult because it made me feel like I'm maybe just not trying. Something is wrong with me. Something is, in reality, something is wrong with my health. And I just didn't know it. And that was really, really hard to compare myself to other people that were fully functioning and healthy and able to stay awake on their own, to someone who just felt like they wanted to go to bed all the time. So fast forward, I had my daughter, and by the end of my pregnancy, I was sleeping pretty much all the time. I would get my son off to school on the bus, and I would go back to bed. There was no way that I could possibly stay awake. I just had zero energy. Like, you couldn't have paid me to stay awake because it just wasn't gonna happen. I just was tired all the time. And I thought, oh, this is probably just pregnancy. Then I had her, and I was still dealing with the dizziness and exhaustion. And I just thought, well, this is what my doctor said to me last time that I had a baby, is it's just tiring being a mother. So that's what I wrote it off as. And so I did go to a neurologist who basically did an MRI and did some testing, and he said, nothing's wrong, you're normal, everything is fine, I don't really think I can help you. So I kind of just gave up again, and I just thought, well, I'm just gonna be tired, this is just gonna be my life because I have children, and apparently that just makes you automatically exhausted. But what these doctors weren't realizing is how exhausted I was. So I ended up having a sleep study recently. I just found out this year that I had idiopathic hypersomnia. And I went through a lot of years of unnecessary struggling and exhaustion. It got to the point where all I really felt like I could do was sleep or just be awake barely functioning, which that would be good if I had a desk job and I was able to get away with that and still make a living. But when you're a parent and a hairstylist like me, you need to be able to be awake and function. Um, the only time you're going to get a nap is if your child is napping. So I had resorted to just living off of caffeine. And it really wasn't working. Sometimes I could drink 3 cups of coffee and lay down and take a nap. Um, so I just felt like I was doing the best that I could, but I really wanted to do better. I wanted to have the energy to take my kids on bike rides and walks and go swimming. But every time that we did an activity afterwards, I was wiped for the rest of the day. Like, there's no way that I could go on a bike ride and then also go grocery shopping that day. It would just take too much out of me. And it was depressing and really hard. And I started planning my days according to being exhausted because I just knew if I do this one thing that I really want to do, then I'm not going to have energy for the other thing. So the kids always end up coming first in my world because I love them and I want to bond with them and do fun things. So putting off other things that I needed to do for them is what my survival tactic kind of was. And thank goodness for my husband and him being there through all of this, because he was a huge support with being able to drive when I was too tired that I felt like I couldn't, and he was just really big help. I don't think that I could have I don't think I would have found out that I had a diagnosis had he not been there for me through this. Because I'd probably be too tired to force myself to make an appointment. So I just, I really feel bad for people out there that maybe they're a single parent or they don't have any support and they don't know what illness they're experiencing, because it's really hard when you basically essentially feel like you have taken a sleeping pill, but you have to stay awake all day and try to function and do your job, and other people don't understand why you're not functioning. Why aren't you able to do what everybody else is doing? And finally figuring that out for anybody is, it's a big relief to be able to have treatment, even though there aren't a lot of treatments approved right now. And I wasn't super excited to find out that a stimulant was going to be my only option to help me stay awake. But it's actually worked out well, and honestly, it's so much better to take a stimulant in a low dose and be able to stay awake than to just be exhausted and depressed and tired and anxious because you have this big list of things that you just can't get done because you're too tired and you're battling exhaustion and fatigue like no other. I also have some other things going on with my health, but I felt like it would be good to do videos one at a time, just so that you can get a feel for the different things and how they affect me personally. And maybe you have a similar story. I've met a lot of people online in different communities that all have a lot of the same conditions as me. And it's really interesting to see that. So it seems like there might be clusters of certain disorders that go together. I'm definitely not an expert, but I just really wanted to reach out to people and see if I could maybe help somebody figure out that they too could also have the same condition, or it might just be worth it for you to get a sleep study so that you can find out. And the other thing I wanted to say about a sleep study is that if you go for a sleep study, you're going to need a nap study the next day, and that's how they determine if you have idiopathic hypersomnia or narcolepsy, which are two very similar things. The only difference is narcolepsy is basically rated on your REM sleep and how fast you go into REM sleep, So if they don't see that you're going into REM sleep very fast, then they won't think that you have narcolepsy initially, even though once you research more, you might find out that you still could possibly have it without going into the REM sleep super fast, because there are a lot of other symptoms that are pretty straightforward that people with idiopathic hypersomnia don't have. Um, so yeah, I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you got some information. I look forward to hearing from anybody that wants to talk or has questions or advice. I'm new to this too, so it's kind of exciting to finally find some answers. And I hope that you get some answers too. All right, bye-bye.